Good evening. Hello. Welcome to DK Reads a Freakin' Book, Chapter 5, baby. We're on it. So where are we? Well, our hero Corran has just spoken with Wedge Antilles about a number of things, including Han Solo doing some checking on some things for Corran. What's the word I want? He's putting some feelers out to see if he can sidestep the New Republic's secrecy thing. What is the word I'm trying to say? Look, if you didn't listen to the last one, I don't know why I'm trying to describe it to you. Just listen to it. It's fine. Just go back. Don't feel bad. Just listen to it. Don't miss out. Let's get right into it. Chapter 5. Of I, Jedi. By Michael Stackpole. Despite the early hour, Wedge made a call to Luke Skywalker, and we were invited to his chambers in the Imperial Palace. Wedge obtained an airspeeder and flew us over. He wove an aggressive course through the tall towers and thick ribbons of traffic, choking the airways of the Palace District. Jacking the speeder up on its left side, he slid us between two heavily laden lift trucks, then came around in a big arc that brought us in for an approach of one of the palace's many landing bays. I glanced over at him, the look of pure pleasure on his face. You may not believe it, but you're missing the squadron a whole bunch. He winked at me. I'm missing flying, certainly, but dealing with you fighter jocks and your egos was wearing thin. Yeah, that's all space dust and plasma balls. Now we deal with politicians and their egos. I laughed aloud. You just moved up to really hard targets. Wedge frowned for a second. More truth to that than I want to think about, my friend. We both fell silent as the Imperial Palace came into view. An upwelling of towers and massive edifices. It appeared to be the ultimate monument to power. Even so, the various parts had been sculpted with such exquisite attention to detail that, taken in isolation, portions of it appeared positively delicate. What looked like thin membranes and gossamer tracery from far off became far more solid upon approach, but proximity revealed yet more levels of detail, complete with winking lights and bright colors splashed about. Complex seemed to be the only word that could fully encompass the palace. The New Republic government had tried to abandon the name Imperial Palace, and various campaigns to call it things like Republic House or simply the Capitol had been launched down through the years. None of them succeeded because none of them seemed appropriate. It was as if the building had grown up to fill every nuance suggested by the title Imperial Palace, and to call it anything else just felt wrong. Wedge gave the proper codes for us to land at the palace, then led me off through a maze of corridors to the Jedi Master's home. What had been utterly lost in the tangle of hallways, I only had a vague sense of our moving across the tower and up, but never really knew how far we had gone. Part of this was because the ornate designs and vibrant colors used to decorate this palace tower almost overwhelmed me. The use of Imperial Scarlet predominated, with gold, silver, blue, and green accenting various features. Just when the clash of color would become too much, we'd walk past an alcove or wall panel that housed artwork from one of the myriad planets in the galaxy. I found the alcoves to be a sanctuary of sorts, and greatly anticipated them, moving from one to the next as I might move from system to system on a long flight. What struck me as odd about my reaction was that this was not my first trip to Imperial Palace. I couldn't be certain I'd not been in this very tower before, but the fact was that quite a bit of the palace was garishly decorated. Part of me speculated that the reason for the violent use of color and ornamentation was because when the Emperor lived here, he so sucked the life out of everyone that if something was not made brutally and abundantly clear to them, they would not notice it. The palace had not changed since my previous visits, but I'd always come here before with my wife. Mirax's appreciation for art, her knowledge of the various pieces, their styles, likely origins, and even market value, had provided me with the context in which to place everything. I focused upon these things that interested her and built upon a foundation my mother had given me on our visits to museums on Corellia. Through Mirax, I had been able to filter out all the irritating things, but without her, the colors assaulted me. Master Skywalker's chambers saved me. The door opened before we got to it, and Wedge did not hesitate in plunging into the dimly lit room. The low lights quelled the riot of color. While the chambers still had the imperial styling, there was no excess of furnishing to clog them with angles, plush fabrics, and dangling fringes. The shelves that had been built into the walls of every chamber were all but devoid of data card boxes and curios. Aside from a few mementos, a gaffy stick, his X-Wing helmet, and a couple of other items I remembered from the Emperor's Jedi mausoleum, the shelves remained bare. He had a gaffy stick? That's kind of funny, isn't it? Maybe it's the one that, knocked him out. And then Obi-Wan said, "Hello there." And then totally forgot about R2-D2. Had it really been that long? Anyway. The Jedi's chambers reminded me of a very spare condition of the safe house in which Mirax and I had come to live. The freedom from distractions made the rooms feel peaceful. Time seemed to slow here, and for the first moment since I discovered Mirax was gone, I didn't feel as if a sandstorm was scourging my brain. Luke looked over at us from the small kitchenette and gave us a smile. "Wedge, good to see you again. And you as well, Captain Horn. Can I offer you something to drink?" "Calf, if you have it. Also, calf, I don't think that's anything to do with calf, decaf. It might be like a Star Wars-y joke on coffee. I don't know. It's spelled CAF. I'd have to look that one up." Wedge hit a yawn with the back right of his hand. "You keep it dark enough in here for me to drop off right now." "Calf it shall be, then." Jedi Master looked at me, and I felt electricity run through his blue-eyed gaze. When we had met before, I had felt power in him, but now, after his experiences with the Emperor Reborn, his power had been redoubled. Physically, he looked a bit haggard and worn, with the flesh around his eyes having tightened and wrinkles appearing at the corners. I knew we were the same age chronologically, but in experience, he far surpassed me. It's funny that now we have seen that. We have seen Mark Hamill as Luke looking like that. That's kind of fun. You kind of have a better mental picture. Anyway. And for you, Captain, I keep some of that geezer pale blue ale here for Han. I'm having hot chocolate. Hot chocolate? Yeah, okay. The hot chocolate thing is from one of the Thrawn books. Apparently Lando gives Luke the gift of hot chocolate. But C-3PO is like, "Oh, I don't know." And he's like, Lando told me about hot chocolate. It's fine. I think that's what I remember. Is that silly? I don't know. You decide. I wouldn't have put it in there. I thought for a moment, then shook my head. Too early to start drinking, and I'm not sure I'd want to stop. And I certainly don't need to be more awake. Your agitation is easy to sense. Luke gestured toward the simple chairs and low table opposite the food prep station. Why don't you explain what the problem is? The soothing calmness of his voice helped quell the riot of emotions in me as I took a seat. Wedge sat at my right hand, and Luke across from him. I leaned forward in my seat, resting my elbows on my knees. I took a deep breath, held it for a moment, slowly exhaled. My wife, Mirax, is missing. She was off on a mission for General Kraken, a mission to see if she could discover the location of the Invidious, so he could put an end to Leonia Tavira's raids. I hesitated, chewing my lower lip for a second. She'd not have gone, except for the fact that I said once the Invids were dealt with, we could make a decision about having kids. If I hadn't put that condition on making the decision, she wouldn't have gone to Kraken and wouldn't have been taken away. Luke reached out and laid a hand on my left arm. Take a moment. Calm yourself. You're building on a foundation that is not sound. I frowned. What do you mean? You're taking responsibility for Mirax's actions. Responsibility that is not yours to take. Luke kept his voice low and even, forcing me to focus so I could hear his words. She may have gone to Kraken to help end the Invid raids for a whole host of reasons. Clearly she wanted to help you and Rogue Squadron deal with them quickly. You think what she did was dictated by your postponement of a decision. She was probably more interested in keeping you and your friends alive. Wedge nodded. You have to admit, Corrin, that what Luke's just described is exactly the sort of thing she would do. I shut my eyes for a moment, then nodded slowly. Good point. You're right. But that doesn't mean part of her disappearance is not my fault. Luke's hand tightened on my forearm. Your sense of guilt is natural, but you can't let it paralyze you. I am curious, though, about one thing. You say she's been taken away. How do you know that? I don't. I just know. I was sleeping, waiting for her to come back home, when I heard her call my name. Then I heard her scream it. Then there was nothing. I opened my eyes and locked gazes with the Jedi Master. I could feel she was gone, not dead, just cut off from me. Then I began to forget details of her and our life. I could look around the room and identify things that she had brought into the house or that she had owned or used, but I got no emotional details. It feels as if she is dissolving from my memory. Luke straightened up and sipped his chocolate. His eyes grew distant for a moment, and his face became a dark mask. Very curious. What is? Having the memories fade. He looked at me again with an intensity in his eyes. I'd like to try something, if you don't mind. I glanced at Wedge, who gave me a reassuring nod. Fine. What do you want me to do? Luke smiled easily. Just open your mind to me. I want to probe you. You'll feel something. A little pressure. It might even tickle. Okay. He drew in a deep breath, and as he exhaled, I felt a wave of peace wash out over me. I did my best to relax as the Jedi's eyes half closed. I felt something in my mind, something gentle yet firm, like a reassuring pat on the back, press against my consciousness. It grew more intense and shifted from point to point, if something as ethereal as a mind can be said to have points. I felt different angles of attack and an increase in pressure that verged on painful. Then it evaporated and Luke sat back. I looked at him expectantly. What? He grinned boyishly. Very interesting. Were you trying to resist me? I shook my head. Not at all. Was there a problem? A bit. I could pull off some surface impressions, but you were locked up pretty tightly. He frowned for a moment. Let me try it a different way. Wedge, I want you to start talking. What about doesn't really matter. Something simple, maybe a joke. Corrin, focus on Wedge's voice and what you feel about him. I'll do the same thing. We'll try to bring our thoughts on a roughly parallel course. That might provide me with an opening. I shrugged. Worth a shot, I guess. We both looked at Wedge. I'm not very good with jokes. Luke nodded. The sound of your voice is the focus here, not making us laugh. Okay. So there was this Bothan who walked into a tap calf with a gaunt under his arm. I closed my eyes and listened to the sound of Wedge's voice. I thought back on all the times I had heard it, and all the advice and congratulations he'd given me, all the danger we'd shared, and the good times as well. I marveled at how we'd managed to scrape through impossible situations, winning against odds longer than even a Corellian would have bet on. I thought about all the people we'd helped, the lives we'd saved, and even the shared pain of comrades lost in our battles along the way. The whole of that time, I only caught a hint of Luke's probing. This time, instead of coming in directly, he allowed his exploration to begin flowing along in the same direction as my thoughts. The current of his sensing melded with me, and whatever mental defenses I had in place failed to fully recognize this other presence in my mind. Luke's inquiries slipped past them, still bumping along my memories of Wedge. Then, when he hit upon a memory in which both Wedge and Mirax appeared, he veered off sharply, and I felt as if a transparasteel fang had been driven deep into my brain. I must have blacked out for a second, because the next thing I saw was Wedge standing over me. I blinked away tears and found myself staring up at the ceiling, with my chair having toppled over onto its back. I clutched at the arms so hard my hands hurt. My legs had wrapped themselves around the chair's legs so tightly I heard the fiberglass creak and snap. I felt the burning in my lungs and realized I needed to remind myself to breathe. Wedge dropped to a knee beside me. You okay, Corrin? Luke, how are you doing? A bit better than he is, I suspect. Luke appeared on the other side of me and pressed his left hand to my shoulder. I felt something flow from him into me, and my quaking limbs slackened. Easy now, Corrin. I know that was a shock, and I'm sorry. I slowly snaked my left hand over to wipe my mouth, and came away with a bit of blood from a bit lip. Pain still echoed within my brain. The hollowness in the pit of my stomach made me happy I'd not drunk anything. I coughed and forced a weak smile. Not what you were planning? Not at all. Luke and Wedge disentangled my limbs from the chair and helped me to my feet. With a gesture, the Jedi Master got another chair beneath me and I sat again. I had to fight to keep from slipping slack-spined to the floor, but I managed it. Sorry for breaking your chair. Not a problem. Wedge frowned. So what happened? I didn't think the joke was that bad. Luke laughed politely, and even I had to smile. No, Wedge, it wasn't. Even Corrin will agree with that. What happened was I managed to work my way in past his defenses and use the memory of you and Mirax together to make my connection to her. In doing so, I poked Corrin in a vast open psychic wound. I shivered, and somehow I threw you back out of my mind. Yes, you did, and quite strongly. Luke righted his own chair and sat down again. I think I have a clue about your losing emotional details concerning Mirax. Tell me. You've got flash burns. The trauma of hearing her shout for you and then having her gone pretty much burned out your emotions where she is concerned. Your mind is closing off access to certain points to prevent taking another shock like that. Luke shrugged lightly. Your defenses are quite strong, and right now it's like swelling after trauma. You're shut down emotionally and very tough to reach. Some strength had returned to my limbs, so I pulled myself into an upright sitting position. It's not permanent, is it? I don't think so. Luke sipped at his drink. The mind can be pretty hardy. I waited for him to swallow another mouthful of chocolate, then asked, So, will you help me find her? I would like to very much. First, we need to figure out why she's missing. Wedge frowned over the lip of his caf mug. She's missing because she went out to learn about the Invids. That's the root cause, yes, but why her? And why wasn't she healed outright? Luke pressed his hands together. There have been points where I have felt friends being in danger over great distances, but the most powerful time was when Han and Leia and Chewbacca were on Bespin and being tortured by Darth Vader. He wanted me to come to him, so he could win me over to the dark side. But he knew you'd been trained as a Jedi then. He knew you'd be receptive to that sort of bait. I poked a thumb against my own breastbone. Almost no one outside the squadron knows my Jedi connections, and I haven't been trained. In fact, there's very little to link me to the Jedi at all. Luke nodded. Then what is there to link Mirax to them? My heart stopped for a second. Sith spawn. She has my Jedi credit. I gave it to her when we were engaged. She wears it as a good luck charm when she travels. I wonder if that's like a Jafar snippet. Jafar? Garblafar? I don't know. The Jedi Master's face darkened. That could be it. From what I learned of the Corellian Jedi traditions, when a knight became a master, he had memorial coins struck. They were given to family, friends, and his master and students. It could be that someone saw the medallion, assumed a link, and then took action. But why? It didn't make sense to me. You said Vader tortured your friends to lure you into a trap. I can't find Mirax, so how can I fall into a trap? Wedge shook his head. Might just be a warning, Corrin. Warning you off from doing something. Sure, but what? Luke held a hand up. We don't know. Speculating now could be a waste of breath. My using the Bespin example might have set us off on the wrong trail. It could be nothing more than someone kidnapping Mirax because they recognize her and they think they can ransom her, since both of you are known as part of the rebellion. The warning you got may have come before any ransom demands, and the kidnappers might not know where you've been warned. The warning you got may have come before any ransom demands, and the kidnappers might not know you've been warned. My eyes narrowed. Good, then we're a step ahead of them. With your help, we can find Mirax and take care of the situation before it becomes more dire. Agreed, but there is a problem. What's that? Luke sighed. I don't have your connection to Mirax. The abruptness with which your link to her was broken makes me wonder if she's in stasis. I'll have to ask Leia what she felt when Han was sealed in carbonite. I know it hurt her terribly. What you felt, I bet, was a lot of what she felt. I hugged my arms around myself. The thought of Mirax being frozen in carbonite or stuffed into a hibernation tube filled me with dread. You're saying that you have no way of finding her. No, not right now. Not over this distance. My heart sank. So she's lost. I didn't say that. Luke set his mug down on the table and stared into my eyes. I think you can find her. I think you are strong enough in the Force to pick her out, even if she is in hibernation. Her thoughts may have been slowed to the point where they barely register, but through the Force you can find them. They will lead you to her. But I need to find her now. No, he insisted calmly. You need to find her. What you need to do now is learn how to find her. Luke stood, circled behind his chair, and leaned heavily on the back of it. I've been thinking a lot on what has happened recently, and I know there's no way Leia and I, and her children, as they grow to maturity, could shoulder all the responsibilities that we're called upon to deal with now. Down through the 1,000 generations that the Jedi maintained peace in the galaxy, there were lots of Jedi. Hundreds certainly, thousands probably. The Emperor's best efforts to destroy the Jedi were not wholly successful, and there are Force-sensitive people still out there. Just like you, Corrin, and me and Mara Jade. We need to create more Jedi to share the burden. Mara Jade also doesn't exist anymore. That's sad, because she's the best. I know I asked you before to join me and train with me. You refused for what were good and valuable reasons. Events since then have not let me push to reestablish the Order, but now is the time. In a couple of days, I plan to ask the Senate to let me reestablish the Jedi Academy. Just a basic search through databases has turned up a number of viable candidates. If I can get a dozen, I think I'll have enough to start. I'd like you to be one of them. How can I think of training to be a Jedi when my wife is gone? Wedge frowned at me. Think for a second, Corrin. If her abduction was meant to send you a message only a Jedi could understand, then whoever has her is tough enough that they think they can take on a Jedi and survive. If you don't train to be a Jedi, what do you think of the chances of your being able to rescue her? Luke nodded. Wedge is right. And if you got the message because of your sensitivity to the Force, and the kidnappers know nothing about it, Jedi training will make you that much more able to deal with them and save her. Luke! Learn how to become a weapon so you can use your Force powers and probably murder people. That sounds like a very Jedi thing to do, right? Their logic was unassailable, but I still felt uneasy about committing myself to a course of training while Mirax languished in stasis. I don't know. The Jedi Master slowly smiled. I would have expected no other honest answer. 2 things for you to consider, Corrin. The first is this. When Vader tortured my friends, it was to lure me to him and to disrupt my training. I made the most serious mistake of my career, leaving my master at that point. It cost me my hand, nearly cost me my life, and, as events went from there, could have seriously hurt the rebellion. You have a chance, being faced with a similar challenge, to avoid the mistake I made. I hope you will take it. I could feel the sincerity rolling off him. What's the other thing? The Corellian Jedi tradition is a strong one. In the annals of the Jedi, many Corellian Jedi are noted for their devotion to service. They tended not to range far from Corellia. That system had more than enough for them to do, but their wisdom and courage made quite an impact. You are heir to that tradition, and I think weaving it back into the new Jedi traditions will be very important. What you do in joining the Academy will not only let you rescue Mirax, but will help others come to their full potential in the Force. I hear what you're saying, Master Skywalker, but there are other problems. I shrugged. I'm not you or Han Solo, but I'm not unknown in the New Republic. Mirax's kidnappers hear I'm at your academy and being trained as a Jedi. Her life would be forfeit. Wedge pointed at me. If nothing else, his status as a hero of the rebellion would probably distract other students. Very true. But that's not too difficult of a problem to handle. Luke smiled easily. Dye your hair. Grow a beard. You'll look different. In your time with Corsac, you performed undercover operations. Sure, but I wasn't known as Corrin Horn during those assignments either. No, you changed your name. Luke nodded solemnly. In researching the Corellian Jedi, I saw a name. Probably an ancestor of yours. He may even have been named for him. He was Kieran Halcyon. You can use his name. It is close enough to your own for you to respond to it, yet far enough away to give you the cover you need. Kieran Halcyon. The name rolled around in my brain and seemed to soothe the last lingering bits of pain from Luke's probe. That might work. I have to think about it. Luke reached out and patted me on the shoulder. It is a big decision. Go home. Definitely think about it. Think about reclaiming the heritage the Empire tried to deny you. This is yet another chance for you to defeat that evil and prepare yourself to battle new evils. If you truly want the galaxy to be safe for the children you and Mirax will have, learning to become a Jedi is the best possible course you can take. Wise words from Luke at the end of Chapter 5. Lots happened. Lots happened in that guy. So let's recap. Corrin goes with Wedge to hang out with Luke at Luke's sweet Jedi pad. Basically, Luke says, you want to come to my new Jedi Academy? Which is funny that is happening in this book. And even though it's not canon, That is what happened in the new canon. That's why Kylo... Well, the things that happen with Kylo, if you've seen The Last Jedi. So it all kind of still ties in. Although, like, for example, Kylo doesn't exist in this universe. And that line about there being hundreds, maybe thousands of Jedi, that's fun. So yeah, I hope you're enjoying this book so far. I'm very much enjoying reading it to you. It's a lot of work and a lot of time, and I really hope you get something out of it. I'll see you next time, and may the Force be with you. Bye-bye.